to welcome everybody. My name is Jennifer Schuder. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing for the Great State Fair of Texas. And we're bringing everybody to you from all across the state of Texas tonight. Welcome to the third Blue Ribbon Selection virtual tasting. The Blue Ribbon Selection is part of the fair's Fair at Home programming this year. Unfortunately, we're not able to celebrate our fair traditions in person this year, but we wanted to bring a little bit of our fair fans' traditions to their homes. So the Fair at Home program is a whole selection of different types of content that allow you to celebrate your traditions at home. Everything from the Big Tex Cooking School, where you can learn how to make your own funnel cake at home, to downloadable fun kids activities where you can actually create your own creative arts competition. But we're here to talk about wine tonight. So the Blue Ribbon Selection sort of came out of something that's core to the fair's mission. As our nonprofit mission states, we celebrate everything agriculture, education, and community involvement. And wine intersects with a lot of that. And so supporting agriculture is really important to our organization. And so, many years ago, we started the State Fair Wine Garden, where we're able to showcase wines all 24 days of the fair. Usually we host between 25 and 30 different wineries doing a sampling each day. And because we're not able to do that this year, we worked with a panel of wine experts to put together the Blue Ribbon Selection, which is a mixed case of Texas wine. It really showcases the diversity of Texas wine, the quality of Texas wine, and I would say the value of Texas wine, because it's a great box of wine for a really great price. And they're still available, and we'll tell you about that. But we have two of the people who helped put that together with us tonight. Heather Queen is a personal wine concierge. She's also a founder of Queen of Grapes. So it's a great website if you want to join our wine club. She has lots of things. She can help you find the wine that you want. We also have Shelly Wilfong, who is a wine educator, and she's also the creator and host of This is Texas Wine podcast, which can be found wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also really excited to be showcasing 3 of the wines that are in the box tonight. And joining us from Llano Estacado is Jason Centanni, who's their winemaker, as well as Bill Friedhoff, who is the VP of Sales and Marketing. Welcome, guys. We also have Tony Offill, who's the winemaker for William Chris Vineyards, as well as Jennifer Mclnnis Fadel, who is the general manager of Vending Branch. So welcome, everybody. We're excited. I'm excited to dive into these wines. You guys are some of my favorite wineries, so I'm looking forward to tonight. So before we get started, just looking at this, I was talking to one of our peers at the Texas Department of Agriculture today, and she sent over a few things. October is Texas Wine Month. We're right in the middle of it. It's actually, this is the 21st year for it, which is, when you can kind of look back at that history, there's must have been a lot of changes that have happening. But the facts that stood out to me when she sent over is that the Texas wine industry is the fastest growing segment of agriculture in Texas. And I think that's a pretty big statement and says a lot for the industry that you guys are all in. And it's really exciting, as you look at it, and as we look at how do we support that as the fair and going forward, it just makes it even more fascinating when we're being able to be back in person in the future and being able to taste that. So I think that, can you guys, knowing that this is the 21st year of the Texas Wine Month, can anybody kind of speak to what does that mean, and what are the changes that have happened in the last 20-something years if we've celebrated, or what's even happened in the last couple of years that you guys would highlight or showcase?
Well, I guess I'll jump in. I think the winemakers can probably attest to this, that just the quality of grapes that we've gotten off the high plains and other parts of the state. I think we have to keep preaching that and educate our consumers and the people that are out there that are curious about Texas wines, just how good the quality is, and how it's really competitive out there. And the fact that a lot of wineries have come up from virtually nothing to where they are today. And it's all because of quality. It's all because of great winemakers. It's all because of great sales teams that go out there and fight every day. It's a fight every day to put Texas on a map versus some of the other companies and other wines that are out there from around the world. So it's real important. I mean, October is it's a month we all look forward to. It's a great month for us. You know, we do a lot of volume in October, and we just we're out there preaching Texas Wine Month as much as we can.
So I want to jump in just a little bit, only because as Jennifer gave me this project with Shelly, and then Shelly was launching the Texas Wine Podcast right about the same time, right?
I launched in June.
Yeah, so she launched in June. We started talking about doing this fair from home in July. So I kind of all came out at the same time. And as we've kind of walked through different wineries and different wines, and I have to tell you, I probably tasted a couple hundred wines in the month of July, just to narrow it down to where we are now. And this is, you know, going out there and talking to people about wine, and they're like, oh, I wouldn't drink Texas wine. I'm like, oh, but have you tried this wine? Try this wine. Just try it. Here, I'll open the bottle for you. You try it. I guarantee you're going to like it. And I've gotten 99.9% response of, oh, wow, I really like this wine. I would drink this wine. And people, because they can't travel out to California, Oregon, Washington, New York, are traveling down through here and through the hill country and through the high plains, tasting wine. I've gotten more emails and more phone calls about people coming down here to see what's going on just since COVID started. So, you know, that's a kudos to everybody making the wine, that's selling the wine, that's out there talking about the wine. And Bill, I think that, you know, Llano being one of those first wineries, you guys probably have seen the ebb and flow and the change, you know, as well as William, Chris, and Bending Branch. All of y'all have seen how it's evolved even over the last 5 years.
Right, absolutely. You know, we've been at it a lot longer, but you know, the new up and coming wineries, they're just showing some great wines out there, and this is an industry. This is an industry that we all need to make better. Whether you're big or small, we all need to work together to grow this industry and educate the consumer. That you know, we talk education all the time because I think it's very important. You know, if I may, you know, our 1836 is part of our fine wine portfolio, which is a portfolio that we take to on-premise accounts only. And going back to what you said, Heather, I've been pleasantly surprised when I'm making presentations out there to restaurateurs and somms, where, you know, I think when you first walk in, they have that kind of look of, oh no, you know, I've got to drink Texas wine. I got to be nice to this guy, but and I'm telling you, I'm pleasantly surprised. I've been pleasantly surprised, and I really think that people who taste these wines are genuine when they tell me these are good wines. These wines can stand up against wines from around the world at a higher price point even. Sure. So I think it all goes back to my first statement of, you know, you've got some people, very talented people that are making wines in the state of Texas. And, you know, if you find good fruit and you find good people to make wines, some good things happen. And I think you'll see that tonight with these wines.
So let's start with the first wine. Tony, could you tell us a little bit about William, Chris, and the Skeleton Key, please?
Oh, yeah. So I'm Tony. I'm the winemaker at the William Chris Vineyards. We started in 2008 with about 400 cases of wine. This year we'll do, we process enough fruit for about 45,000 cases of wine. So we've grown just sort of a gradual growth. I'm actually sitting in our brand new tasting room on our property. If you can see, there's a little bit of vineyard out back.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We have about 7 acres of vineyard on the estate. We manage around 5 acres, and then we work with about 33 families to source fruit. So the wine that we're talking about today is Skeleton Key White, number 2. So we do a complete series of Skeleton Key. We do a white rosé, a red blend, and also a Cabernet Sauvignon. This white is a blend of Roussanne, Marsanne, and Picpoul. We're also pulling each of these wines as sort of a a different style that we do almost every year. So the Roussan is in oak barrels, the Marsanne is in concrete fermenter, and the Picpoul is in stainless steel. So we're trying to blend, you know, keep the bright, fresh acidity with the Picpoul Blanc and the stainless steel, and add some mouthfeel with the concrete and the oak barrels. And I think it's pretty good. I don't know if anybody else has this one.
I have it. It's really good.
Delicious. And this seems like one that's a little bit larger production, so people might find this out in distribution.
Oh yeah, so this is HEB. I think it's at Whole Foods, Central Market, United Supermarkets. But we're, so you can find all the Skeleton Key line there.
Shelly, why did you pick this wine? Shelly picked this wine, just in case you're curious.
Okay.
Well,
not because it was great.
It is great.
I love, you know, I'm a little picky about my white wines, and I just think this hits all the right notes. It's got enough interest and enough kind of character. It's not boring whatsoever, but it's also not cloying. I think it's a great wine with food. So I think it matches a lot. I know some of you are enjoying charcuterie boards right now, so I bet it's a lovely match for a lot of your nice meats and cheeses. I think that it's just versatile and tasty. And I honestly think that you have to include a William Chris wine in a box that showcases the best of Texas. So this was one that I thought was worth putting in the box.
Yeah, that was sort of the idea behind this wine, was to be able to blend and build complexity, build layers. That's why we used oak, concrete, and stainless, just to try to get a more complex, kind of soulful wine. If you do it just in stainless steel, it's kind of one-dimensional, it's linear. If you do it in oak, it's all mouthfeel and an oak bomb. And then if you're doing it in concrete, it's kind of strange because concrete has these peaks and valleys. But when you thread them together and you do it the right way, the wine can really sing.
Yeah, I think so.
And so these vineyards are all in the High Plains, is that right?
Yeah, so the Roussan came from La Pradera Vineyards. The Marsanne came from Timmins Estate. So Timmins Estate is, I think it's still Lubbock proper. The La Pradera is in Brownfield, Texas, and then the Picpoul is also from Timmins Estate. And that's those two vineyards are managed by the same company. It's Andy and Dusty Timmins. They're brothers, some of the oldest growers in Texas, and manage probably around 200 acres right now. And it's really, really quality fruit coming out of those vineyards.
Tony, I turned my computer because you can see the wind fan right here.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell people about that? Because I just am fascinated by this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is, and I can see it to my right, but you couldn't see it on the computer. That is for frost protection. So it's set to come on automatically at 35 degrees. And it's just to keep the air moving. So think about a pond that'll freeze over, but the river doesn't, right? So you want to keep that current going to keep the air temperature a little bit higher because vines don't really like it when it freezes. We learned that last year.
Thank you. All right, Jason, tell us about 1836. Everybody knows what 1836 is, right? The year 1836.
Jason, tell us.
Tell us what 1836 is.
Well, the year 1836 was the year that Texas gained its independence from old Mexico. And this wine, it's been around. Well, first of all, I'm Jason from Llano Estacado. This does not say Llano Estacado on it, but it is made at Llano Estacado Winery up in Lubbock. And this wine was kind of co-developed with our distributor, Republic National. And it's pretty simple, really. The idea is kind of like similar to our Viviano that we make, which is a super Tuscan blend that was developed when my boss, Greg, our VP of winemaking, came to Llano back in the early 90s. He wanted to just develop a flagship wine with a simple formula of find the best grapes, the best Cabernet Sauvignon, the best Sangiovese in that case. Traditionally make the wine, set it up for long-term aging, so that it has longevity in the bottle and complexity, and is textured, and it's kind of the same formula for this wine, except that we were just approached by our distributor to basically do the same concept, but be a little more, have a Texas, independent theme to it, and just source the best Cabernet. So Cabernet is still a grape for us, and the best Syrah that we could find. Just so happens we have kind of a source for some really nice Syrah, some really older vine Syrah in the state. And yeah, just apply the same formula. Best grapes we can get from that vintage. If we don't get the best grapes, or if it's a vintage where, there's a heavy freeze, whether it's fall or spring, and we don't get the quality, benchmark that we're trying to meet, we just don't make the wine. But I kind of jumped ahead. This winery, I've come on board in Llano Estacado in 2005. I've been winemaker since 2015. These developments for these type of wines, were not around really when I came on board. And then over time, there's just been this demand from the consumers of like, show us what you got, show us what you can do. We know you guys can produce, value-driven wines in the grocery stores. We see you all day, which is great, which is still, what we try to do day in and year in and year out. And like Bill said, it's very difficult. It's very competitive out there to do that. But we, utilize new technologies, kind of blended, new and old in the winery to kind of continue to bring, value-driven wines to our Texas consumers every year. And this particular wine, kind of like the Viviano, it's like, we hear, you got great, $12 Cabernet or Tempranillo. What else do you got? What else can you do? And so that's what we did with this. And it's been 2008 was the first vintage we made it. And we've made, off the top of my head, I want to say since 2008, we've done 6 vintages of the 1836 red. We've created an 1836 white, which is a Rhone inspired blend. Overlapping varieties to the skeleton key that Tony had talked about, Roussanne being one of them. But it's just, let's put our best effort out there and do something cool, something delicious. And that's just like Texas, screams Texas on the label.
Jason, we have a question about the percentages. Bill just provided it, but could you tell us the percentage of the Cab, the Syrah, and the Tannat in the 1836, the 2017?
Yeah, I don't have it memorized, so I'm going to guess. I don't have my notes.
We put you on the spot. He actually put it up there for us. It's okay.
Okay, good. I'm going to guess, see if I'm right. I want to say this particular vintage, 17, was Cabernet heavy, and then Syrah was next, and then Tannat was only like 12% or 11%.
Look, you got it pretty close. 42, 41, and 17.
Which one's the Cabernet, 42?
Yeah. Yes.
This was actually our first on-premise only wine that we did, and every time we introduce a new vintage on both the white and red, we actually get the principal at our distributor Republic to kind of put his stamp on these wines. And Jason will tell you that we've gone back and forth 2 or 3 times with the principal to get just that perfect blend that he wanted to, quote unquote, call it his wine. Obviously we make it and we sell it, but they take some ownership in the fact that, this is a wine that they helped create. They're very proud of it. And like Jason said, it's right there on that same wavelength as our Viviano as far as a flagship style wine. This is one of 10 wines that we have in an on-premise portfolio right now. And for a while we were doing very, very well with that portfolio. And, of course, the pandemic hit and hit all of us hard. So we're struggling a little bit right now with that on-premise arena for our business. But, this wine is actually, this and a few others are doing very well. There's still, we've got a lot of placements out there where this wine is performing very well. So we're real proud of it. And Jason's done a great job with it.
I will tell you, this was the first Texas wine that I put on my wine list at Ocean Prime. I'm not at Ocean Prime anymore, but
Ocean Prime, yeah.
It was the very first Texas wine that I put on the list there. And I've had this conversation with people in the past where I've said, oh, I'm not going to put Texas wine on there. And this was many, many years ago. And then finally, my rep brought it in and I was like, wow, this is good. I'm going to put this on the list. And it actually does quite well there. And I mean, I'm not there selling it anymore, but other people are there selling it. So it was the first one. It's not the only one now, but it was the first one. So, and
it's still a fight out there. You would think, in Texas wines, that every Texas restaurant would have a Texas wine on the list. It's not the case. And I think, and I know I can speak for Jennifer and Tony and Jason, I'm sure, we're out there every day, trying to make it happen. We're any kind of lead we get with restaurants, we attack that lead and try to make it happen. So it's an ongoing thing. It's not going to happen overnight. I'll just go back to the word education again. People need to know about Texas wines and what we're all about.
It'd be lovely for people that are listening in. If you have a favorite restaurant that you frequent, if they don't have Texas wines on the list, ask for them. Yes. Because they will not add wines if they don't think there's a demand for it. So encourage them, ask for those wines and keep asking, and hopefully will affect change at some point.
Just bring your bottle with you and say, I'm going to drink this.
Whether you like it or not, I'm bringing it with me.
It happens like that as a Som on the floor who's not on the floor anymore. It was, hey, why don't you have Texas wine? Why don't you have Texas wine? You're a Texan. Why don't you have Texas wine? And I was like, yeah, I'm a Texan. Why don't I have Texas wine? And finally it came about, and now there's several Texas wines that, you can, and even now you can discover new and cool things at different wineries and new wines that would do well in your restaurant. So yeah, like you said, Shelly, if they don't have it, ask for it and continue to ask for it. And they will eventually put it on there because they want to make their customers happy. All right, Jennifer, talk about Texas to Not. I'm very excited about Texas to Not.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Mclnnis Fadel. I'm the general manager at Bending Branch Winery. We're in Comfort, Texas, which is about an hour west of San Antonio off of I-10. When you exit to go to Fredericksburg, you're in Comfort, so stop just for a bit there. The winery was founded in 2009, and I've been there since 2015. We are obviously known for Tannat, so really happy to taste this wine with you guys tonight. This is our Texas Tannat. I'm drinking, I think everybody's having the 2017 vintage. And 2017 was a really excellent vintage for Texas. You're seeing a lot of the reds come out. I know we've just released most of our 2017 reds, and they're just phenomenal vintage of wines. Tannat is known for having the most tannins of all of the red grapes because it has very thick skins, and so the tannins are there. I mean, this is a grape that originated in France, but typically was used for blending to add body and structure to a wine. And it's also the top red producing grape in Uruguay. And, you think of those areas, very hot climates, just like we have here in Texas. And so we have pioneered, championed this grape in Texas. A lot of people are growing it now. It's not blended in the 1836. I know you guys have it there at William Chris also. We are now at a point in our program that we are producing a lot of single vineyard Tannats to really showcase how this grape shows off and performs in different areas of Texas. This 2017 vintage actually, for the first time, was sourced from 4 different vineyards. Primarily in the past, it's been Texas High Plains, but this was actually a blend of Texas High Plains and Texas Hill Country. We've diversified because of the weather challenges that we have here in Texas that Tony was mentioning. We've had years where we were wiped out by hail, we were wiped out by freezes, and so we've now diversified and have Tannat planted throughout the state. And so this vintage is Hill Country 2 vineyards and the Hill Country 2 vineyards in the High Plains that's in here. Because it has those big tannins, we typically age it longer than traditionally. So this was aged in 18 months, and it was a combination of new and used American and French oak. Our owner, Dr. Bob Young, is from Kentucky, so really big fans of American oak. We also make some wines. We also make a double barrel Tannat that we age in bourbon barrels that are from Kentucky. And that's an amazing wine. We bottled this in April of 2019. This is our flagship wine. It is what's mostly distributed outside throughout the state of Texas, primarily at HEBs, some specs, but this is what you can find everywhere throughout the state, no matter where you are. It is a great food-friendly wine, perfect for our Texas cuisine, you know, anything grilled, smoked meats, wild game. It needs a steak to go with it. Love it with a ribeye. It's just tasting really, really amazing. We just released the 2018 actually. So we actually reserved 2017 for you guys that are getting to try it tonight. So thrilled to taste it with you. We also have, we're known for experimentation, both with grape varieties and with different fermentation techniques. And so some of our other lesser known grape varieties in Texas are Pic Pool Blanc. We were the first to plant that in the state of Texas. We're also working with Trabono and Suchau, a Portuguese grape variety that bud breaks a little bit later than everything else. So it's a really great fit for Texas. We use fermentation techniques like cryomaceration, where we will freeze the grapes first and then thaw them out and start fermentation. We're looking for ways that we can coax the most out of Texas grapes as possible. So both in cryomaceration and flash détente, we have the only flash unit in the state. And that's a total opposite process where it heats the grapes and then flash cools them in a matter of a second or so. And so the berry bursts and we get nearly 100% extraction of color and flavor molecules from the grape skin. So all of those techniques are reasons that we age a little bit longer. So all that has a little bit of time to settle down in the bottle. So even though you've got the tannins in this wine, they're really soft and approachable. They're not aggressive in any way. And just happy to be here tonight and taste some Texas Tannat with you guys. Cheers.
I have a question for all three of you. Of your wines, would you lay any of these down and age them? Because we have this 2017 1836, we have the 2017 Tannat. We talked about what a great vintage is. How, and then can you do one other thing while we're all on here? Can each of you raise your bottle up and put it into your screen, please? Yours too. Yep, there you go. Roberta wants to see. There we go. Beautiful. Thank you. So of the wines that we have, how many of would you lay them down if you could lay them down, or would you drink them now, or would you do a combination of the both?
Combo.
Yeah.
I'd buy a case and drink one every 6 months to a year so that you can see how they progress over time. Certainly with Tannat and some of the other reds that we're drinking on the call tonight, you could age them. We typically suggest for Tannats that they'll age about 7 to 10 years, but in actuality, we've only been around for 10 years, and that's all we know at this point. I think some of the ones that we're producing now could age a little bit longer, but that's a great question.
And Jason, how long would you don't make this every year, is that correct? You don't make the 1836 every year, or do you?
Correct.
And so
no, we don't.
Of this
And
20, would you do the same? Would you lay it down? Would you drink it now? Would you do a combination?
Well, I definitely echo what Jennifer said. Texas, we haven't been around that long, and a lot of the wines that we make, we sell them. There's not a lot of wineries that do library programs. We're actually working on that here, but that's important because it gives, there's a small segment of wine drinkers that really do, prefer, mature, sometimes very mature wines. They're almost dead, but they want to see how these wines age, and they want to taste complexity, tertiary aromatics, just totally melted tannins. They want that. So I think it's important that we do stuff like that for our own edification or knowledge, and also for the small kind of niche market that, you know, likes those styles of wine. But yeah, to answer your question, I actually opened this wine can easily go 5+ years. Just like Jennifer said, we really don't know how long. We've only made this wine. The oldest one we have is 2008. We still have some kind of around somewhere. But yeah, I would say, you know, these types of wine, these bigger wines, you know, if you're going to drink them, open them up an hour ahead of time, put them through the decanter, the aeration ringer, because you're not really, you know, they're so tightly wound sometimes, they're not going to really show their best until you just kind of beat them up for a little bit, until you get about 5, 6 years on them. And then it's like, okay, kind of hold back on the abuse of whipping that wine into shape. And then, you know, then you can kind of just pour it in the glass and enjoy it. You know, a little bit of aerate, you know, a little bit of oxygenation going there. But yeah, we're still figuring that one out. What are our most long-lived wines? I know this has the pedigree to go at least 8 years. I've had an 8-year-old 1836 and it was still good. But that's a good question. So yeah, the only way to find out, like Jennifer said, buy a case, drink one every 6 months to a year, and then let us know how that works out too, so we can take some notes.
Tony, it's on you with the white wine, because you've got some grapes in here that are age-worthy grapes. How do you think this one would age, if it would age?
Well, so this particular wine is only the second iteration. The first one we did in 2018, this one we did in 2019, so we don't have a lot of sample set on this. But you're right, the Roussanne and Marsanne they could probably get some age on them. Picpoul Blanc is a sort of different animal. That wine is supposed to be young, fresh, really bright. But it kind of depends on the winemaking style. Are you trying to build mouthfeel? Are you putting it through batonnage, which we did on the Roussanne? I think this one could probably go 3 years and still be a really, really good wine. But maybe it's 5 years. I have no idea. Certainly not as long as like a Tannat or the 1836.
Are you holding any of it back just to see how it'll age?
So most of our wines, we like Jason and Llano Estacado, we're trying to build a library program. So most of our wines will take 50 cases to 100 cases and store them to see how the wine is aging. It's difficult to tell because we're young, the industry is young. I've had some really good wines from 2008 when we first started.
Right.
It's difficult in Texas just because we are extremely young to know how long the wines are aged.
It was really more of a theoretical question on the grapes and how those grapes can be age-worthy where they are from, in France and their originality. We're not trying to compare to France at all. But
we are all the time.
I know, but we're not. We're Texas wines. We're not French wines. Yeah. And that's kind of what we talked about last week when we were doing this. Is people were asking, how are you comparing to California or to Oregon, Washington, France, Spain, wherever? But we're not comparing because we're Texas. We're creating our own brand of wine and what we want here. And I'm curious with the white wine, because these are age-worthy wine. The red wines are age-worthy wines. We can lay them down. We know that But with white wine, it can be a little tricky because typically we drink white wine young. And so I kind of gave you a trick question, really. I wasn't trying to
thanks for
put you on the spot. No problem. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I really wanted to know your opinion on the whole process because, it'd be interesting to see how they will age over a particular time frame and wondering how any of the three wines will be 3 or 5 or 10 years from now. I've had really old 60-year-old wine from Napa that I was like, okay, well, it died a long time ago. I didn't need to drink this. But you know, it's kind of how do we see how it progresses as a young wine country moving forward?
Oh, can I add to that?
Yeah, I'm gonna add to that too.
Yeah.
Both of you can.
You go ahead. Go first.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to encourage Tony. I would encourage you to lay some of this down. We found a 2011 estate. I think it was 2011. The very first vintage of Pic Pool Blanc that was made from the estate vineyard at Bending Branch. We found it in the cellar. There was like 3 loose bottles 2 years ago at a party that we did, and we brought that wine out and it tasted amazing. It had aged beautifully. We do, you know, some barrel aging on that wine. So maybe, you know, that had something to do with it, but it's got that acidity. Pic Pool has that acidity that it can age a little bit. And so it was amazing. So.
Go ahead,
yeah, I was going to say that sometimes, you know, we produce wines not to age. And, you know, if we don't have the right closure, or if we know it's going to go through a supply chain where it's going to be exposed to uncontrolled temperatures, et cetera, you know, it's not really meant to be, you know, laid down. So to answer the specific question, I mean, it's as easy as call up that producer, write them an email and ask, hey, I got this bottle. Should I lay it down? Not, what do you suggest? You know, the cork, or if it's a screw cap with a specific liner in it, you know, it can really, you know, just asking the question to the producer, they can really, you know, let you know if it's, you know, got 5 years, 10 years, indefinite, whatever, or what to do, you know, in the whole age or not to age dilemma.
I have a couple of questions here. I'm going to start with Roberta's question. Do the vineyards have volunteer programs during harvest or production? Harvest comes a lot sooner here than it does in other places, just so you know. So it's really hot in August. So do any of y'all have volunteer programs that people can come and work during harvest or during production time?
Tony does.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We don't.
I'll work anytime.
I think to answer that question, maybe they just need to contact the winery specifically to see what you guys have going out. If you're looking for an email for somebody, just let me or Shelly or Jennifer know. We'll get an email out to you or a phone number so that you can call them and ask them if they have that kind of
Hill Country Wineries is a great resource too. If you follow Texas Hill Country Wineries on Instagram or Facebook, and around harvest time, starting in usually late July, they'll start sharing information about the different vineyards in the Hill Country that are looking for harvest help. And I did that this July for the first time. I had helped at a Texoma AVA winery closer to my home in Dallas, but I hadn't been down to the Hill Country to help. So it's a lot of fun, and you meet some fun people. Usually start before the sun's up and work for a few hours, and you're ready to be done at that point, because it's kind of backbreaking, but it's a good experience. It's fun. Make you appreciate your wine a little bit more, I think.
Absolutely.
So the next question that we have here is, how does a library program work? I don't know, Shelly, we can probably go into that too. How does a library program work? I am interested in seeing the difference as wine ages. I think, Jennifer, you said it good with the, that was really bad English. I'm sorry. I just want to acknowledge, I think my mom might be out here and she's going to call me later and go, did you just say that? So like you said, the 6 months, lay it, you know, put it in the cellar. So why don't you reiterate that just a little bit?
So library program, I know we're all building a library program. So every vintage and every wine, primarily reds, although some whites will set aside. We typically hold back some cases that we hold on to, and we go back and taste them over time. And we've also started doing, I mean, pre-COVID, we were doing some library verticals where we were going back and tasting, you know, we're at the point now where we've got Tempranillo going back all the way to the 2010 vintage. We have some of these varieties that go back, you know, multiple years. And so we'll taste them together, and now we're doing them virtually some, but you can get multiple vintages of the same grape and the same wine, and taste the nuance of, you know, what happened that year, what was the weather like, how did that impact the wine, how's this wine aging, and how's it showing differently over time. And so we're doing that internally. If you want to start a library program at home, you know, it's exactly what I said, start buying some cases, and you know, obviously store them properly so that they're you know, cared for, and they're refrigerated. Ours are, you know, kept in our refrigerated areas, so they're constantly at 56 degrees cellar temperature. That's really, really important. And to Jason's point that you said earlier, if you're opening an older vintage of a wine, you're going to want to be really careful when you take the cork out. You're going to probably want to decant it, and then allow it to open up just a little bit, because it's been in the bottle for a long time. It's going to evolve also, not only over time, but in the glass.
But it may die quickly. That's the tricky part with
That's
older
true.
wine.
It falls off a cliff.
Yeah, you got to get to it a little faster than you would with the young wine.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
Well, I was going to say, to kind of add to that, you know, the wineries are, you know, kind of doing that. It sounds like all three of these wineries represented here are taking the time to, you know, store these wines and age them in the appropriate conditions, because it does take a lot of like time and money to really do it properly. You know, the storage temperature, man, that's the biggest thing, honestly. And if who invited that guy?
everybody's going to want to know who that guy is now. So go ahead and
Ranger
tell
danger.
So I'm gonna introduce, Chris Brundrett.
Hey, Chris.
Chris.
I missed it tonight, guys. He's way better than I am.
Go ahead, Jason. The storage of it is very, very appropriate, and it's very important. You can't just go throw it out in the heat of the summer of Texas and think that it's going to last a long time.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, if you're curious, just contact a producer you're interested in and ask them, hey, you got a library program? What library wines do you have, and what's available? And they'll perk up big time. You'll have a long phone conversation, I bet you, if you ask that.
Yeah, we have a library program too. We do verticals too. It's
there you go. See, we're developing ours. We're late to the party, to be honest. But yeah, no, I'm telling you, you just ask your favorite, whoever you know you're interested in finding out more about. Just call them up. Ask for the winemaker. Ask for Chris Brundrett.
There you go.
Or Tony.
no, Chris is good. They can ask for Chris.
Last time I was at William Chris, I asked for the oldest Mourvedre that you had in the library. And it took them a long time to pull something out of the cellar, but I got a 2010, and I have yet to open it, but I'm planning to very soon. They said we don't know what the condition of this will be. This is one of the very first ones we made. But I said, all right, I'll give it a try, just for fun, out of curiosity.
Shelly, I don't live far from you, so when you open that, will you let me know? I'll just come on over. This is a really interesting question, Shelly. This might be a question for you and me, and then everyone else to kind of chime in. How do you think, and it is y'all's question, it's just an interesting question. How do you think your wines stand up to similar European wines, and how do you think the best way to promote them when we travel again? How is the best, I'm guessing, Roberta, maybe you can help me out with this. How do you think is the best way to promote the Texas wines when we travel again? Is that the question? So how do you think your wines stand up to European wines? I'm going to add my little 2 cents here in just a second. And then how would you promote them when we travel again? So I think that we're not comparing ourselves to European wines. Is that maybe a correct statement? We're Texas wines, and we are growing European grapes here in Texas. Now, I don't grow grapes, so y'all can just shut me down at any moment in time. And I don't make wine. I just drink a lot of it. But from what I understood last week and the week before is we're not trying to promote European grapes here in Texas. We're promoting Texas wines. Is that a correct statement? We're promoting our wines that we grow here in Texas. And well, yes, they happen to be European varietals, but we're growing them here in Texas and showing the Texas terroir and the Texas AVAs. That is a question mark.
That's correct. I mean, we're
Jason's ready to jump in. I think it's stylistically, right? There's this Europeans, like the old world style versus new world style. And is that where you're going with this, Jason?
Or I'm going to use an old Greg Bruniism. He says the only thing we share in common with Europe is the sun. That's it. You know, we're like, we're New World, man. We're not Europe at all. If we have some similarities, and cool, you know, great. I think a lot of the old world wines are delicious, and you know, those are a lot of my benchmarks. But will we ever achieve that? Probably not. Yeah, we are totally different, and you know, we are unique in the New World. Our wines definitely do have a specific characteristic to them. And, but that's how all wines are across the world. So yeah, I guess we do have some similarities with Europe.
I think
They're just different enough.
represent a sense of place. So I don't want my Texas wine to taste like it's from Spain. I want it to taste like it's from Texas.
Me too. So if they blind me on it, I got it right. You know, it's funny. It comes back with, we take Texas wines with us everywhere we travel. And Jason Heisaw, who's not with us today, said something last year. He said, we not a lot of Texas wine gets out of Texas because we consume it all here. The Texans are drinking all of the Texas wine, so it doesn't get out of Texas as much as maybe other wines do. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
You know, another thing that Bruni says too is, you know, and he says this usually at the end of every meeting that we have, you know, the best Texas wines have yet to be made. They're, you know, we're making good wines now, but there's still better wines that are out there that are going to be made out there. So,
yep.
And I think you guys can echo what I say on that one as well.
I have a question along those lines, specifically about grape varieties that you're excited about. And I know, Jennifer, you mentioned Sochaux. I always mispronounce that. And a couple other Portuguese varieties that I've heard you mention. And I know in the 1836 there's Syrah, and I'm really interested in Syrah being a grape to watch in Texas. But I wonder if each of you could just comment on what varieties you are interested in looking at toward the future. And I know Will and Chris in particular will be planting some new vineyards, so maybe you can mention that.
Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, sure. Well, I did mention Sochaux, a Portuguese variety that bud breaks a little bit later. It's also a Teinturier grape, so it's got red skin and red pulp, really rich, complex flavors. In Portugal, it's typically made into a port, you know, sweet dessert wine. We work with it from, we have a small winery in California also, so we work with it there. And in a dry wine, it still has all those kind of dried fruit flavors that you would expect from a port, but it makes a stunning red wine. And then Charbonneau, we planted the first acre of that in Texas. We're about to plant some more. And that wine is just luscious, amazing, just rich, complex. Super excited about that grape coming out.
You say Charbonneau, I say Bernarda, but whatever.
It's not actually Bernarda, okay?
I say Merlot, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Tony, can you tell us about the vineyards that y'all are planning, the new ones?
Oh, sure. So it depends on where we are at in Texas. In the High Plains, we mostly focus on Rhone varietals. So Mourvèdre, Cinsault, Carignan, Syrah, Roussanne, Marsanne.
Map of Texas.
Down in the hill country, it's a little bit different. We do plant a lot of Tannat. So we're pulling up some of our Malbec at the estate vineyard, and we're planting Tannat because it is, it's a brut. It'll grow. It can withstand the heat. It always makes a really quality wine. We also have a property that we're beginning to plant close to Johnson City. It will also be Tannat, maybe a little bit of Sangiovese, maybe a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon. But we're slowly but surely falling in love with Tannat. I mean, we'll still do Mourvèdre like always, but Tannat is really great.
Mourvèdre broke your heart last year, didn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. So get this. 2019, we made 170 tons of Mourvèdre. This year, we made 38 tons of Mourvèdre.
Yeah, it was a tough one. We should honestly tell everyone, you know, back last year, in Halloween last year, we just got hammered. You know, we had picked grapes like days before, and then we had that huge, you know, Arctic blast. You know, they say the only thing blocking, you know, the cold temps from the Arctic to West Texas is barbed wire fence, is what I hear. So anyways, that came down. It killed a lot of the primary buds. It killed a lot of the fruitful buds for this year. And so yields on the High Plains this year were really just like drastically reduced. But, you know, and Tony can probably echo this, you know, the quality was like really nice, and harvest came a lot earlier, but man, quality was nice. If you jumped on it and picked, you know, and weren't, you know, like waiting for the regular harvest time and paid attention, you know, we got some really nice fruit this year. Man, I totally agree with both what Tony and Jennifer said on exciting varieties. Tannat, really, this is like a super secret, you know, but we made 2 vintages of Tannat here at the winery. We got a 3rd in barrel. Nobody knows about it. You have to come to Lubbock to try it.
I don't even know about it. Jason, I don't even know about that one.
I know.
I haven't even got a sample of that yet. What's going on?
The secret's out. But yeah, I'm on the Tannat train. And then, yeah, Sasau, I don't even know how to say it. But we got some this year, and it's like, I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's like, it's so dark and rich and so unique. These are, you know, really the hot climate, the thick skin, you know, it's kind of like the people in Texas. If you like hot weather and you got thick skins, and
So true.
Don't listen to that.
That's what happens when you pick it half a ton to the acre. Quality fruit seems to be there.
When we were putting the box together, I called Shelly back in was it August, September, maybe early September, and I said, man, I really love Tannat, and I really love this Tannat, but I think it's kind of outside the box of what people might understand or know. And she goes, I think you should put the Tannat in there. And I'm like, okay, cool. I just needed one person to tell me that it was okay to put Tannat in here, because I love Tannat. I had it, you know, maybe for the first time 10 or 12 years ago, and just adored it. So I am super thankful that she said, put the Tannat in there, Heather, do it. And I was like, all right, I'm putting the Tannat in there. So
thank you. Texas consumers are coming around to it. And if they're not yet, they will be once they taste it.
They will.
There was a big discussion online this week about, among other things, what does Texas need to do to market itself better? And someone was talking about all the different varieties, because we do grow a tremendous number of varieties, 60 something or more. And someone said a lot of people don't know that that Burgundy is Pinot Noir. And I was thinking to myself, but they might know what Mourvedre or Tannat is. And so I don't really care if they know what happens in Burgundy. They may be more familiar with Tannat, and that's cool too.
For sure. That's a great point. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Well, I was going to say Burgundy is, yeah, the grape is Pinot Noir, but Burgundy is all about the villages, and it's all about the communes and the little crus, or the grand crus, you know. But yeah, it's one grape, but there's so much diversity. And, you know, we haven't even scratched the surface on the diversity here and what we can do with like 60 grapes. So
exactly,
got to work cut out.
I think
in
it's
in the winery too, because I know Tony is doing some interesting things with Tannat. I happen to have some carbonic Tannat in my cellar.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to Shelly's house this weekend to hang out in her wine cellar.
Read the wine fridge. I think that's a great point, though, that's come up, is we're working with all these really unique, unusual grape varieties. And so, yeah, there is a big educational component to that, especially built in the marketplace, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, how do people say this grape? What is it supposed to taste like? You know, it's not your Cabernet, your Merlot that you're familiar with that you're just going to grab off the shelf without giving a second thought to. So it's really so important, and we're so appreciative of all of the events like this and the support that we get from the Texas Department of Agriculture, from the State Fair of Texas, from all the rodeos, to help us educate consumers about what we're growing here in the state and what they should be looking for on the shelf and what they should be stocking their fridge with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm all for the Tannat, I'm just saying.
Thank you. Me too.
It's a really pretty grape, and you know, there's not a lot of it grown, but we've been able to source it from 3 different vineyards, and totally unique expression from each spot. And
Absolutely.
that's pretty cool. That's kind of like Tempranillo. Everyone's forgotten. We never even talked about Tempranillo tonight. It's sad. Used to be the little darling.
The big darling now. The big darling now.
We have talked about Tempranillo, just not tonight because it wasn't the focus. So.
Yeah.
All right, that's right.
Well, I appreciate all of you guys coming out and talking and spending time and for making such great wine and sharing all of the information with us. I know Jen's going to say something here, but this has been such a great pleasure for me to experience all of these wines, the vineyards, the people. And so I thank all of you very, very, very much for your efforts, your cooperation, and for making great wine.
I would second that.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And hopefully next year we will all be together at the state fair at this time and celebrating in the middle of the wine garden, and maybe pairing it with some fun fair fried food. How about that?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank you, everybody. Nice talking to everybody.
Bye.